Villages that defy human limits. Some homes are not built for comfort. They are built where one loose stone, one violent storm, or one wrong step could turn shelter into danger. Clinging to cliffs, hanging above deep abysses, and standing on ground that never feels completely safe, these houses challenge everything we think a home should be. Yet people still built them. They carry history, danger, wonder, and the restless spirit of a country built on. Today, we are entering the world's most dangerous homes, places where walls do not just protect life, but stand on the very edge of losing it. Bivacco Buffa di Perrero, Italy. Bivacco Buffa di Perrero is often described as the loneliest house in the world, a title that reflects how the structure nearly disappears into a sheer Dolomites cliff, revealing only a small facade suspended in mid-air. The shelter is embedded inside a natural rock cavity, surrounded on all sides by vertical stone walls with no conventional walking path leading to it, making it resemble a hidden doorway carved into the mountain. After decades of abandonment and roof collapse caused by avalanches and alpine storms, the site was fully restored in 2022 by Italy's 6th Alpini Regiment as an emergency refuge for mountaineers. Inside, the space is extremely compact, with raw mountain rock forming the walls, fitted only with 12 simple wooden bunk beds and no electricity, running water, or toilet facilities. Reaching the shelter requires advanced climbing skills, including navigating iron ladders bolted directly into vertical rock faces and narrow exposed ledges. Along the route, climbers must cross the 27 meters Cristallo suspension bridge hanging over a deep abyss famously featured in the film Cliffhanger, turning access to this refuge into a genuine survival challenge. Jinding Temple Grottos, China. Hidden beneath the giant cliff wall of the Taihang Mountains, Jinding Temple Grottos appears like an ancient cave temple complex carved directly into the rock. From the outside, the entire structure is pressed tightly beneath the upright grey stone face, making it look as if the temple is being half swallowed by the mountain right at the edge of the drop. The most special part of this place is the worship caves, cut straight into the rock, where hundreds of Buddha statues are still kept deep inside the darkness of the mountain. Surrounding the cave shrines are temple halls and monastery buildings connected in a long, low line, as if they are trying to hold on beneath the crushing weight of the giant cliff above. To reach Jinding Temple Grottos, you cannot simply drive through the mountains and follow the sloping path until the whole cave temple complex suddenly appears on the massive grey rock wall. Casa do Penedo, Portugal. Casa do Penedo is often described as one of the strangest houses on Earth, built by wedging the structure directly between four massive granite boulders. Inside, the layout follows the natural rock formations, featuring a eucalyptus wood sofa weighing about 772 pounds, with stairways and railings carved to fit the stone precisely. There are no artificial gardens surrounding the house, only wild grass, scattered rocks, and open sky, creating a sense of total isolation from the modern world. Because of its remote location and unwanted attention, the owner installed bullet-resistant windows and reinforced steel frames to protect the building. Despite sitting next to a large wind farm, the house has no connection to the power grid and relies entirely on candlelight for illumination. As visitor numbers increased, the owner stopped living here full-time, and part of the house was converted into a small museum. Rifugio Nuvolau, Italy. Perched on a mountain top at an elevation of about 8,450 feet above sea level, Rifugio Nuvolau is the oldest high mountain refuge in Italy's Dolomites, built in 1883. This solid stone structure stands right beside the edge of a vertical cliff, offering a natural viewing point with a full 360 degrees view across the surrounding glaciers and the most iconic mountain peaks. To create such a strong structure in that harsh environment, in the late 19th century, workers had to cut the foundation directly into solid limestone and carry all materials by human labor across steep mountain slopes. The entire outer shell of the building uses hundreds of tons of natural stone fitted tightly together, combined with a steep roof design, forming a strong fortress, able to resist violent winds and the weight of deep snow covering it for many winter months. El Alto Cliff Homes, Bolivia. El Alto, Bolivia, where the so-called suicide homes cling to the edge of a cliff so precariously that even the slightest slip makes it feel as if an entire house could vanish from the face of the earth. These are not ordinary homes in the traditional sense, but mainly places where Aymara shamans work and carry out rituals, remaining right on the edge of the cliff to offer ceremonies to Pachamama. While authorities continue warning people and urging them to leave, many refuse because they believe their rituals, prayers, and water diversion methods can keep that land standing. Vardzia, Georgia. Carved deep into the steep cliff of the Erusheti Valley, Vardzia appears like a giant underground city hidden inside the heart of Georgia since the 12th century. To escape the destruction of invading armies, tens of thousands of people cut into solid rock to create a perfect survival maze made up of 13 levels. Using only human strength and simple tools, they quietly hollowed out an entire giant mountain without revealing any clear sign to the outside world. Inside this dramatic stronghold are more than 6,000 rooms, shelters, and a dense water system, carrying clean water deep into the mountain. But a devastating earthquake in the late 13th century tore open the mountainside and permanently exposed the whole inside of this underground fortress to sunlight. Many experienced drivers often stop to pray before entering the jagged cliff section because a mistake of just 0.1 inches is fatal. Manaslu Base Camp, Nepal. Manaslu Base Camp stands alone at an elevation of nearly 16,400 feet in the Himalayas of Nepal, serving as the deadly gateway to the 8th highest mountain in the world. Existing in air so thin it can leave you gasping, this camp faces the constant fury of massive avalanches ready to bury everything at any moment. With no solid structures for protection, hundreds of thin fabric tents have to cling to cracked ice just to survive. Every night of sleep here is a real gamble with life. As the roaring sound of breaking ice keeps tearing through the silence of the dark. Even with its reputation as a notorious graveyard, this frozen place still powerfully attracts explorers who long to defeat the furthest limits of human endurance. Remember that this journey lasts from 12 to 18 days, and your life depends completely on whether your body can survive the lack of oxygen. Renhai Hanging Temple, China. Renhai Hanging Temple appears like a tiny red temple fixed directly into a hollow in the middle of a white cliff. Standing in front of this scene, you will see that the mountain wall behind it is unbelievably huge. While the whole red temple complex looks so small that it feels as if the mountain is almost swallowing it whole. What makes this place so striking is how the red color of the architecture stands out sharply against the white-gray limestone and the green forest around it, making the entire structure look like a powerful highlight in the middle of enormous nature. Would you dare to climb up to this cliffside temple, or would the view from below alone already be enough to make you hesitate? Rifugio Gervasutti, Italy. Rifugio Gervasutti hangs in a precarious position above a deep drop at nearly 10,000 feet in the Italian Alps, shaped like a spacecraft floating in the air. This place is surrounded by freezing snow and ice, facing violent storms day and night, while the danger of avalanches is always nearby. The most chilling detail is that half of the shelter reaches straight out into open air, forming a solar-powered rescue pod that can hold 12 people. Reaching this place is not easy at all, and is only meant for people with serious mountaineering or advanced hiking experience. Ganvier, Benin. Known as the Venice of Africa, Ganvier, the largest floating village on the continent, rises over Lake Nokoué in Benin and shelters about 20,000 to 45,000 people living completely on wooden stilt houses. Long ago, their ancestors used these deep waters as a natural fortress to escape the brutal slave raids on land. More than 3,000 bamboo and wooden houses stand in a precarious position on tens of thousands of wooden posts driven deep into the mud, creating a one-of-a-kind city with no real foundation. To survive, the residents pushed millions of dry branches into the lake bed, creating huge fish traps that provided a rich food supply. Even more remarkable, they patiently spent many years carrying loads of red soil by boat to build the few artificial islands used for schools and cemeteries. Paro Taktsang, Bhutan. Paro Taktsang, also called Tiger's Nest Monastery, is one of Bhutan's most famous Buddhist monasteries, clinging to a cliff in the Paro Valley. This place has sacred origins from the 8th century, connected to Guru Padmasambhava. While the monastery complex, seen today, was built in 1692. The monastery stands at about 10,200 feet, hanging on an almost vertical cliff and rising about 3,000 feet above the valley below. So, its location alone already feels unreal. The way up is a mountain trail with an elevation gain of about 2,300 feet, and the round-trip trek is usually about 4 miles, with many sources describing it as a difficult climb that includes long, steep sections that can easily leave people out of breath. Vertical cliffs rise 1,000 feet high, equivalent to 3 football fields stacked together, creating a massive natural wall that protects the deep and wide valley. Gintu Temple, Guizhou, China. Gintu Temple in Yinjiang, Guizhou is a small temple clinging to the top of a narrow rocky peak where almost every side drops into steep cliffs and only one thin staircase leads to the summit. The only way up is a chain of narrow steps running along the rock face, twisting sharply through tight and steep sections, creating the feeling that every step is pulling you farther away from the familiar ground below. Looking at the staircase pressed against the cliff on the way to Gintu Temple, would you dare to climb all the way to the top, or would just standing below already feel intense enough? Gintu Temple was built on the narrowest, rocky tip of the mountain, while the exact construction date of this structure still does not have a clearly confirmed public source. Satan tribe, Mongolia. Breaking away from the safe limits of the mainland, the floating village complex of Inle Lake creates a giant kingdom of wooden stilts suspended above the wide waters of Myanmar. This vast wetland keeps testing the limits of human survival with severe changes in water levels that happen throughout the year. To stay there, thousands of teak wooden houses have been built in a precarious position on stilts driven deep into the soft mud, forming a drifting mass of architecture with no real foundation. With remarkable skill, Local people created a dense waterway network and even grew food on floating gardens made from layers of dead weeds. But this fragile stilt house system is now struggling day and night against the harsh decay of materials soaked in water and the erosion caused by violent storms. Wufengling Nameless House, China. Wufengling Nameless House is considered one of the strangest structures built on dangerous rocky mountain terrain in Guizhou, China. Standing in front of this place, you do not get the feeling of a normal tourist site, but of a lonely structure resting on a high, sharp, isolated part of the mountain, as if it could fall away from the entire range at any moment. Ancient traces on Wufengling show that this place was once connected to an old temple and an extremely difficult access route, which means that many generations ago, people were already climbing those dangerous rock formations to build a foothold in the sky. To get near this house, people have to cross steep rock terrain and a narrow path beside a deep crack, more than 260 feet down. So, even looking at it is enough to feel the danger. Auerlandsfjelled. When you arrive in Gurame, the first feeling is not that you are entering a normal town, but that you have somehow wandered into a maze of volcanic rock where soft, tough formations shaped by wind and water for thousands of years still rise around you and create a world that feels both beautiful and deeply unsettling. Here, the most shocking thing is that people did not just live beside these rock formations, but carved directly into them to make homes, so the wall you are looking at is both a cliff face and once a shelter for an entire life. The deeper you go into Gurame, the more it feels like this place has been hollowed out from the inside, as dark windows, worn stone steps, and deep, empty spaces keep appearing across the rock surfaces, as if they are swallowing the light itself. The beauty of Gurame is also what makes it feel unsettling, because this entire strange landscape was created by erosion, which means the same force that made it so beautiful is also quietly wearing it thinner every day. Standing among the fairy chimneys of Gurame, you feel as if you are surrounded by a strange army of stone left behind after the destruction of time. Shinyuji Cliff Store, China. The Shinyuji Cliff Store in Pingjiang County, Hunan, China, is a small shop fixed directly onto a vertical red Dangxia cliff, appearing like a box-shaped wooden cabin suspended in mid-air. Rather than a standalone attraction, it functions as a strategic rest stop positioned along a high-risk via ferrata climbing route. Staff members are trained climbers who must rappel and traverse exposed iron ladders each day to reach their workplace, living and working in a space of only about 21 square feet. All transactions take place without touching the ground, as both seller and climber remain suspended by safety cables on the cliff face. Climbers must hold the safety line with one hand while receiving items and making payment with the other under strong winds and extreme exposure. All supplies are transported manually by human effort. Yet bottled water is sold at a standard price of about 30 US cents per bottle, intended to help exhausted climbers continue their ascent rather than generate profit. Uros Floating Islands, Peru. The Uros Floating Islands in the middle of Lake Titicaca, Peru, are a place where people have built entire homes on islands made of totora reeds at an elevation of about 12,500 feet, turning the freezing water into the living ground for a community that never touches solid land. To keep one island strong enough to carry people, roofs, and cooking fires, the Uros people have to tie together huge blocks of reed roots and keep adding fresh layers of reeds, because if they stop reinforcing it, this entire living platform will soften, sink, and slowly break apart into the lake. Beneath the bright golden reeds is a thick mass of roots filled with natural air that helps the whole island float like a giant living raft. But that same system also makes the ground under your feet feel lightly shaky, soft, and never completely safe. Every step on the island makes a dry, crunching sound, and if you move just a few layers of reeds aside, the icy lake water appears right under your feet, as if life here is resting on nothing more than a thin cushion between people and the deep water below. From the roofs and walls to the floors, everything is made of dry reeds. So, even one small spark from a cooking fire could race quickly through the entire structure, forcing people to place their stoves on stone or metal, so the flames do not touch the very ground they live on. Taung Kalat Monastery, Myanmar. Taung Kalat Monastery is considered one of the most dangerously placed religious structures in the world, standing in a precarious position on top of a rock tower from an extinct volcano in the Popa region near Mandalay in Myanmar. One of the most striking architectural details at Taung Kalat is its bright golden temple towers, which make the whole complex glow against the dark rock and create a feeling that is both sacred and unreal. This golden monastery is now linked to 37 Nat spirits, figures that many people in Myanmar believe protect those who live in hardship and poverty. When you stand on top of Taung Kalat on a clear day, the forests, mountains, and plains open out beneath your feet, creating the feeling that you have completely left the ground behind and are looking down on a vast world from above. Xuangkong Temple, China. Xuangkong Temple in Shanxi, China, is an ancient temple fixed sideways into a cliff where the hanging structure alone is enough to send a chill down your spine. Looking up from the foot of the mountain, the hanging section appears like a thin strip of architecture pressed into a pale rock hollow, so small that it seems as if the mountain could swallow it at any moment. Below that steep cliff are grey-tiled roofs and yellow walls spreading along the base of the mountain, clearly revealing a whole complex arranged by height from the ground level to the most dangerous part of the slope. This cliffside temple dates back to the Northern Wei period, which means it has existed for more than 1,500 years. Blatten, Switzerland. Do you believe that in the beautiful Alps there is still a village so lovely it feels like a fairy tale, yet so fragile that nature could erase it in just a few minutes? In late May of 2025, Blatten was almost wiped out when the Birch Glacier collapsed, sending ice, rock, and mud down into the village and forcing all residents to evacuate. If you plan to visit Blatten, travelers must closely follow official safety updates, because after the disaster of 2025, this is no longer a place you can enter out of simple curiosity alone.